get this meeting going. So it's on?
It is on.
All right, calling the Finance Committee meeting to order for November 12th. And Noah.
Okay, so we have a pretty light agenda tonight. That's why I invited both the chief and the planning director here to talk about some things that they thought were important. So we're going to start with our usual look at sales tax, and I'll slide this down to you guys if you guys want to share this. That way you guys can see what we're talking about. So far, a really good news report on sales tax collections through October. We're about nearly 5% year-over-year growth and about 5% above our budget. So that continues to be strong for us. Again, we budgeted about 3% growth, so we're ahead of budget on the sales tax, which is fabulous.
About 5.5% over budget.
5.4.
Yeah, 5.42, just about 5.5.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's good. Similar story on our REIT collections. Again, this was something we thought might slow down with all the activity, but we're doing really well. The key indicator on the REIT is that we're about 61% of our biennial budget, which with 2 months left is great news. Means at least we'll more, maybe we'll close around 75% of our biennial budget. I think we'll see again how 2020 shapes up, but all good news on our collection front.
Okay.
And of course, I always give you guys the fund balance summary report. Just shows current fund balances as of the end of October, all healthy fund balances, and we'll continue to push out the monthly report. So I expect that report to come out maybe late next week. That'll include another payroll cycle and another AP cycle. So that'll again give us another good snapshot of where we are with roughly 45 days left in the year.
Okay. Questions?
So the next section is personnel updates, and so I've also invited Debbie Lund to join us, HR coordinator, to talk about kind of what we're doing personnel-wise in the city. And
do I want to?
Oh, you tell me. Sitting over there in the corner.
And some of this might be a refresher that you guys have already heard this before. If Rob's talked about it, I'm not sure. I'm pretty certain you guys heard about the public works labor kind of separation at our last council meeting, but I just wanted to go over it again. So we're going out with the public works labor position again. We created this early in the budget cycle. The difficult element of that position was managing the community service program. So,
that position. Okay.
Yeah, it was a low entry level position, doing parks and mowing, but also managing the community service program.
Right.
It really wasn't a good fit, is what we found out. And so now we've separated that. We've kind of assigned those duties to more senior public works staff, and are now recruiting purely for an entry-level public works labor position to do what they really should do: meter reading and mowing lawns and parks impact type work. So that feels like a lot better, clear separation of duties, and responsibilities are falling in the right areas.
Are we able to manage the community service program then by just having others take care of it?
Yeah, so what our strategy has been so far is that we have a couple of public works employees on light duty, and so while they're on light duty, we're trying to maximize their ability to perform work for us. So we're putting them in charge of the community services program because they can do some of that physical stuff. Instead, they can direct and manage. And so far, I haven't heard any complaints. So far, it seems to be working for us. So we'll continue to monitor that over the next year or so. And again, when we get to the 2020, 21 and 22 budget, we might take this a different way as well.
Yeah.
So
because that assumes that we're going to have somebody on light duty all the time, and hopefully that's
not the case. Right.
Right.
So
The other question I have is the judge giving us a lot of community service people? I mean, people that need to perform that service.
I know that because they wait out here at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And so there's a handful of them. I think they're just doing it 2 days a week, just to try to manage that program. And 2 or 3 individuals out there on those days that I've noticed.
And I know in the past it's not, I don't think the judge assigns it to Port Orchard Community Service.
Oh,
They
it
just
can
have
be.
Community Service,
Just
and they have,
it can be any jurisdiction.
they can,
from,
yeah,
okay.
they can. do other things that qualify as community service.
Okay.
And if you like, I can bring Sharon to the next finance committee. She can talk a little more about
Yeah,
how it goes on the court side.
I'm just remembering a conversation at one point where there wasn't a lot of need
Requests.
for
Right.
that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The court administrator mentioned to me a couple weeks ago she had one customer who wanted to know if he could bank some hours ahead of time.
You can have this
I was going to say, being proactive.
Deposit. Wow.
Well, you can put it down as job experience. Okay.
So the next position is the accounting 2 position. This is the position that I have out here that I haven't filled since Melissa left. I think I came to you guys and said, hey, I'm going to wait till the software implementation is complete, reassess my department, see where I think the need is. So hopefully the software did provide some efficiencies and some gains. And by doing that also gives the opportunity to look at us organizationally where we're exposed from a risks perspective, where did I not have backup and coverage. And what I found is that I really didn't have a backup payroll person or backup AP support, and I need some more front desk support. So more than the utility billing clerk, what we did is we ended up utilizing our front end clerk, Janelle, a little bit more, assigning her more utility billing functions, so we're getting cross-trained there. And now we'll bring this person in to be the backup payroll person as well as support AP and support front desk. So this is going to be a change for my department, but I think it makes a lot of sense because we'll have a clear level of level 2 accountants. We'll have a clear structure of level 3 accountants, which under the 3 accountant structure, they're actually providing reviewer type roles in all our primary functions. So I'm really separating duties, continuing to strengthen the internal controls, and SAO recently came out with a new document for all governments to hopefully follow as a segregation of duties document, trying to again identify from their perspective how when they come in audit where the internal controls are and where the risk for fraud is. So our restructure really aligns well with what they are proposing to do. It also gives us a chance to better identify roles and responsibility, who can touch things and who can't, and when does it move up to a reviewer, and when does it move up then to the assistant finance director. The additional piece I'm going to do with Rebecca is I'm trying to pull some of those duties that she has been doing, those reviewer type roles, to our accounting 3 positions. And I'm really focusing her efforts on becoming the internal auditor for the city, which is actually her title and job description. She just never gets to do it because she's doing all these other things. So we're going to reassign work so she can get back to auditing throughout the process rather than reviewing, fixing, and being a part of the process. The other part of her job I'm hoping that she'll embrace is I would like us here at the city to move towards a lean management-like program. The county's got one. I know other cities have these lean management officers that, again, try to work across departments to improve processes, clearly identify roles, responsibilities. I think Rebecca would be excellent at that. She's already attended a few trainings on it. I'd like to send her to some more. I want her to buy into the concept first, though, so that she likes it. And we've been doing some of that work here in the finance department in our AP roles and responsibility, and I think you guys have been clued in on that as each step of the way we make a change, and we talk about what's happening and why, how we're trying to create better efficiencies and make our department run better. The big push next year will be not just our department, but other departments to go in a paperless format. So the clerk's department's coming out with a scan and toss policy, hopefully this month, that the directors will be able to review. And then what we would like to do is next year start moving towards paperless in accounts payable. It's heavy paper, but to get to a paperless structure, you really need to have these roles, responsibilities clearly identified. And we also think it'll help us with our public records request process, because now currently when someone puts in a public records request, we have to go pull a box, pull a paper, and go try to find it, 5 years. Once we get to this paperless world, it will be a search within our system, our new software system, our archives. It'll be a lot quicker, easier on staff time, so we'll have some savings there. I know the police department has some desires to go paperless as well, and some of their activities. Court's already done it. Clerk's office is going to do it. So I would expect next year's budget there to be a big ask from a software perspective to help us get there. There's a few vendors out there that I know, but we're going to kind of continue to talk about that as a management team, where we'd like to go, what we need, and what we need to do. So that's going to give a little broader view of the importance of this accounting 2 position, because it actually has a domino effect on the whole organization. The next position is the civil engineer 2 position. We currently have a civil engineer 1, and that's Ian, who's been doing really good work over there. He recently sat for his exam. We don't know the results. But we think it makes sense to create a civil engineer 2 position to allow him to promote up into. It seems to make a lot of sense for us to retain people, especially when they go through the work, get credentialed, and are now eligible to do more. So you'll see that coming forward, assuming he passes his exam.
So that will be just a change of a position, or is it to create an additional position?
I believe the intention is to create this civil engineer 2 position and then promote Ian into it.
So then there would be a vacancy in whatever he's in now that we would then want to
I
fill?
don't believe they would backfill.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't had that conversation.
Not this budget cycle,
Yeah.
at least,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, there might be a need for it. We just haven't been talking that way. We've been really talking how do we continue to retain people, and this is a logical step.
Well,
You don't
I
have
certainly
to
understand and agree with the concept. It's
Yeah.
just I'm trying to get my mind around, are we adding to that
Okay.
position to the
Right.
org chart,
Yeah.
or just moving, changing, promoting?
Right,
Yeah.
fair enough.
At this time, it's a promotion, and then we'll see what comes of it next year.
Great.
The assistant city engineer, Debbie, I don't know if you want to speak to that. I mean, aside that we have it advertised.
So, right now, we have 6 applicants for our assistant. This is to replace Mike Pleasance. The Public Works Director, Dorsey's looking at those applications. We'll see how that goes. I'm conscious of this. We'll do some interviews and then we'll see how that goes. We went into this recruitment knowing that we are really looking for a diamond, and are we going to find it out there? So we may have to rethink what this position looks like, but we wanted to give it a try under its current structure and see what we find. And if it doesn't work, we'll regroup and be coming back to you.
Does Mark have anyone that he may want to recruit for that position?
I think what we heard from Mike Pleasance as he was exiting is that this position, is in his view, as a civil engineer, that this is a tough position to recruit for. You don't have a whole lot of assistant civil engineers out there, nor people wanting to be that. They're kind of at this other civil engineer 2, 3 structure, and then they kind of move up to maybe the chief engineer. So when we talked to Mike about, is there anybody that in your circle of friends, he said, I don't have a name I could prefer you guys. It just is a difficult position. So we'll see how our recruitment goes, if we can actually find that person that fits what we're looking for. But there's a good chance we might be coming to talking about, the market isn't there for this position.
Yeah, I think what we're hearing is a lot of folks in that area. It's a limited pool to begin with, and they're probably already in similar roles, so they're looking to advance their career and move to the next step. And this position isn't offering that for those folks. But we do have 6 applicants.
Yeah.
So we have some interest, that's the good news.
That's good news.
Now we gotta look at fit and whether or not they have the background that we really need.
Okay.
So the IT network manager, I really wanted to come back to this one because at our last meeting, I brought this to you guys, and you guys approved the new IT network manager position. At the time, I told you that here's the story. Our IT specialist is looking to retire in 2020, and we need some overlap. We think it would be difficult to replace a part-time specialist position, and the city's really grown. He needs a full-time IT person. So that was what we talked about. That was all true. I must have been like a week later, I came in and had a meeting with Steve, who had just returned from vacation, and he had some life changes. I mean, these things happen. And he had an honest conversation with me and said he would like to continue to stay on. Is there an appetite for the city to be willing to allow him to go full-time? He knew what we were doing the whole way, because I've been talking to Steve the whole way. Here's the plan, here's the plan, here's the plan. You're going to run off to Arizona and retire. Great, have a great time. His plans changed. And so he's not moving to Arizona. He's staying here now. and I was actually thrilled because Steve's a great resource here, and he really is vested in the city and really has ideas of how he'd like to take this IT department stronger and make it better. So I thought it was just a win all around for the city. But I did not want you to think that I bait and switched you in any ways. I kind of was surprised, pleasantly surprised, because I didn't have to go out and recruit for someone else, an unknown quantity. I had a known quantity that was willing to stay on for another 3 years. He said he could commit to another 3 years. So that's fabulous. That's all I need. Another 3 years is great. And we'll revisit again.
And I think it's important to note there, Steve didn't benefit in any way other than an increase in his hours, which is what we ultimately knew we needed. No pay raise, no nothing. He just said, hey, I actually would be interested in going full-time. So he didn't do a workaround on us either. I think that's important because somebody could see that from the outside, and that's not at all what happened.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, we got a full-time great person
Exactly.
that we know. So,
Yeah,
Exactly.
no commodity.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a great hire.
Yep.
And we're moving on.
Thanks to Deb.
Yeah, thanks to Debbie. We did it.
Everything's thanks to Debbie.
With that, I've asked Nick to come and talk about an intern he would like to propose.
Yeah, so I attended the American Planning Association conference in Tacoma in October, and in networking, I met a whole group of students, and all of them were talking about fulfilling their internship requirements. And I was thinking to myself, I'm trying to write 6 plans at the same time right now, and I could really use some help, some entry-level help. We had one of our clerk positions was open for part of the year after Michelle left and before we filled that position, and so our salary budget is in good shape, and I feel that we can get 10 hours a week out of somebody who's a current student, and they can give us some. I think the thing I most need help with is graphic design, mapping, kind of the digital design portions of making our plans look good and really doing visual communication, and young people are good at that. So the idea would be to create an internship that would go through part of next year, 10 hours a week for probably 12 to 24 weeks, depending on who we hire and what their graduation and employment schedule looks like. And we did this once before with Scott
I was
Bonjukian.
going to say, Scott did a really nice job for us while he was here.
Yeah, so it's not asking for money, it's just asking to spend the money that's already in my budget, and I think we have to create the position, and we've written a job description for a planning intern, and I know the idea is to long-term to create an internship program that's universal across the city. It sounds like the time frame for that and the time frame for getting some help on these things, especially through the winter when it's quiet, don't quite line up, and so we're hoping we can get this approved prior to creating the full internship program.
Yeah, and so this is kind of a new thing. I mean, I don't know if it's new. I mean, we've kind of roughly talked about it, but I would like to create, as Nick said, a citywide internship and apprenticeship program. That every department will go as one big effort. We'll create a program where administratively we can hire interns from time to time in departments as there is salary and budget available and there's a need available. But we won't have to do it piecemeal, so every department come to the council, I need an intern. Rather, I'd rather run as a program that every department has the ability to apply to intern program, recruit, either at the high school level or college level. Different cities do different things. So when I started investigating what we could do, it became really complex really quick, because high school interns have different requirements and different policies that you have to put in place versus a college. So I'd like to, over the next couple of months, really work that out with this group, what the policies look like, what the program looks like. Are we just gearing towards internship just to service a need, or are we looking to an apprenticeship type program that we want to bring someone in, build the brand of the city of Port Orchard, hopefully get them to go back to college and want to come back to work for us. We talked about it in the mechanic shop, actually an apprenticeship type of workload management. That seemed like a good idea. We just haven't had the time to create the policy and the program. So I'm going to keep pitching that to you each month, that I want to bring this forward. I think it's a great idea. And so for Nick, we thought it made a lot of sense. He needs an intern, he has a need, he has the budget to do it. Can we just bring that forward in the next council meeting and have you guys' blessing on that?
That's great. Great idea.
I love the program.
Yeah.
It's great.
When I talk to
Yeah,
these
internal
students,
for sure.
Tough hiring market. It's great to be able to have a
Exactly.
possible farm system, and absolutely.
Well, and it's a benefit for them as well.
Totally.
They get that kind of work experience, so
Absolutely.
it's a mutual benefit.
Win-win.
I talk to the students, and One of them in particular came and found me at 7:30 in the morning with her full portfolio. And said, here I am. And she's from Tacoma originally, but she's at school in Bellingham, and so she said she'd come home and do like a 1 or 2 day a week type thing, depending on her schedule. But I would open it up to the best qualified candidate, hire. But we already have one person who's very interested.
Well, I think one of the challenges with designing a successful internships program are making them meaningful, where their reputation
Yeah.
does get
Yeah,
out, and
exactly.
people go, where you're just not, because we've all been a part of it. It's like, you know, I'll go file these
Get it
papers. You don't have time to
right.
manage you, or, you know,
Right.
whereas all of a sudden it's meaningful, and they do, the word spreads, you know, through these universities. Like, you want to go work there, and incredible experience. So.
And I think we're an exciting place to work because of the community center thing, you know, this downtown plan that we're about to kick off that we got the grant for.
Did
All of
you
that.
get it?
Yes, we did. We got $50,000 from Commerce to do the downtown sub-area plan. And so just for a young person to be around that type of project,
Oh,
that's really
yeah.
good exposure. And who knows, one of our consultants might pick them up just from having been associated with it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Great.
And the chiefs here also talked about the Navigator program. I don't know if you guys are aware of the program. I wasn't until recently, until the chief made me aware of it, and so I asked him to come speak to it, and things to come.
So please stop me if you guys are aware of the program, but I'll kind of go through a little bit of the history and how we ended up where we're at and what kind of the ask is. So in 2017, the Navigator program was started in the city of Paulsbo. It was originally just a Navigator that was serving the communities of Paulsbo and Bainbridge Island. There was a grant that came through the 1/10 of 1%, and that funded the program. Back then, I think it was close to about $600,000. This year's is about $525,000. But that provides for a program, a grant manager that runs all the grants and does a lot of the larger outreach to communities to see if they can gather the support.
Is that a county-wide tax?
Yes.
Yeah, the 1/10.
Yep, 1/10 of 1%.
Okay. And so part of that is diverted, that's not the full amount, but part of it is diverted also.
Correct. Yeah. So and that's kind of where we're getting to. What we're getting is that every year we have to go ask for that money for programs. I mean, there are dozens of organizations that came and asked this year for funding, and programs like this. What we're hoping to build is to have some sustainability, as opposed to finding great people and hey, you may not have a job after a year. You don't intend to keep people when they don't know if they've got that stability. So when I was there, it started to grow. Bremerton took some interest. Port Orchard took some interest. The county is still kind of back and forth, so they don't have an embedded navigator right now. We do have a navigator here that's here about 25 hours a week. That started earlier this year. The ILA is up, which is why we're coming back. I didn't have this information until Friday, otherwise it would have brought it to you sooner. Right now, Melissa Stern is our navigator. She is going to come and present to the council in January just to give a little bit more of a broader overview. But with her 25 hours a week, she's looking at about 22% of the overall program capacity comes out of Melissa's work. About 20% of the overall referrals that go to this program comes out of the city of Port Orchard. They have also partnered with the schools and then some local resources. There are 8 students that our school resource officer referred to Melissa, and she was able to get some housing and some counseling, both for families and for the youth that were at risk of hurting others or hurting themselves. Right now, it is a City of Paulsbo program. She's a City of Paulsbo employee. They contribute $60,000 per year for the overall program. Bainbridge Island contributes $30,000, and Bremerton contributes $30,000. We can currently contribute 0 for the 25 hours per week that we receive services. In order to be sustainable, they are asking for us to provide some support. Been working with Kelly Zeman, who's my former partner up there that runs the program operationally, and they have to be able to sustain what they can do as well. They are also doing outreach to the tribes, and the tribes are looking to put some money in the program as well, and if we're the outlier, we may lose this program. I'm speaking with Noah on how to be able to kind of bring you guys some data. Part of the difficulty is that programs like this, just like the police, if we're successful, you can't really show that we're successful because it means nothing has happened. But I can give you an anecdote. that was included in some of this, and I'll give you two. Both of them came out of school. One of them was a young man who was experiencing some depression, a lot of hallucinations, a lot of ideations about hurting a lot of people. And normally what we do in such, before we had navigators, and they're not case managers, but they help navigate people to services. Normally in the past we would just say, okay, this is a criminal matter, refer it to the courts, and the courts will figure out whatever discipline, and then hopefully it's a gateway to getting some type of treatment. This is a two-pronged approach. You're still responsible for your actions, but the navigator can then work solely on finding resources, making sure, is this because his mom and dad don't pay attention to him, or are they gone a lot because they've got to work 3 jobs apiece and he's taking care of his younger siblings? What kind of mental health issues is he struggling with? How do we get them to the resources so that it's not just focusing on him and his actions, but it's looking at the whole process? We also had an incident earlier, or late last school year, earlier this year, where there was a kid who had a whole lot of ideation outside of this of doing a school shooting. To enough that the FBI actually got involved, were the ones that made us aware. And that was largely resolved because of this two-pronged approach. Again, he's got to be criminally responsible for his actions and the steps that he took, but he was able to get into inpatient counseling because of the navigator. He was able to get his parents or his mom into inpatient counseling or outpatient counseling, so you can have that whole, the whole solution. And he's already back in school, and he's being successful. And that would not have happened if we had not had a navigator plugged in. We also have a couple of regulars here in town that are a little bit of a struggle. Part of it is because they decline treatment, and we all know that. This is still a free country, and people are allowed to make decisions, even if they're the wrong decisions for them. But we've been able to have Melissa and our CIOs, the crisis intervention officers, stay plugged in with these two folks.
Now, are they adults or are they students?
They're adults.
They're adults.
Primarily navigators deal with adults. But they've been helping not only to try and guide them to services, but we are now looking at the navigators are designed to deal with the high users. And these are the highest of those high users. We were able to sit down. We had a meeting with 14 stakeholders last week to talk about how do we come to a solution, because everybody was doing their own thing and there wasn't a whole lot of collaboration on how do we get these things done. I'll just be honest, without having that program here, we're really hamstrung on what we can do in the city from a police standpoint, and that's just, frankly, that's the old way of doing business, and the reason we're looking at new ways of doing business is it's not as successful to go back to the old. So, again, we're going to have her come and do a presentation in January, but I'm hoping that we can support something like this. Because it's
How many
necessary.
navigators are there through those jurisdictions that you just referenced?
There's 3.
There's 3. Okay.
So we
Under
have
20 hours, and we're getting 25 of the hours. I'm just trying to look from a pro rata standpoint what that may look like.
And what is the ask?
30,000.
30,000?
30,000 for 25. Currently, Bremerton gets, I believe they get 20 hours for 30, and Bainbridge gets 20 for 30.
So we get 25 for 30.
And we get 25.
Well, we're getting 25 for nothing right now.
Well, that's true, but if we want to assume that it's going to continue, it's going to be.
And that's a
25.
net number, that's net of all benefits, or is there plus on that?
No, that would just be base cost.
Okay.
So they're actually also an employee that takes care of all that, which
Yep.
You're
is
just
false.
giving,
Yep.
Yeah, and what it allows them to do, ideally, years from now, when we are able to do a little bit more with this program, we'd like to see every community has their own, and it's kind of managed internally. What's nice about the way that it's being done right now is it's their program. They kind of set it up. They're figuring out a lot of the details, and we are able just to be the end user to figure out how it works for us. We still need probably one for every city, just even in the model that we have now. And Bainbridge and Poulsbo are relatively small communities, and Kelsey's overwhelmed.
So what's the experience of a navigator? Do they go through law enforcement academies, or no?
Nope. No, they are civilians. They do go through the full law enforcement background check because they have access to our records. That was, again, something when I was with the city of Poulsbo trying to figure out how that works. Because if it's a program that's outside the police department, they can't see our records because that's CJIS information, criminal justice information. but they need to see that information in order to figure out how do we guide these people to the treatment, because they are case managers. They don't provide mental health treatment. They just decide who might be an appropriate resource. So we move the operation within the police department, and then the grant managers outside, I believe they created a new department for health and human services, I think, but she manages getting the money and looking at LEAD and a lot of these other programs that would fit within this umbrella, but the law enforcement entities manage the day-to-day operations.
So are they kind of in the midst of harm's way at times, or?
No.
No.
So primarily the majority of Melissa's work is either done over the phone from referrals, or if she does go out in the field once a week currently with us, but she goes with an officer who's specifically trained to work with her as a CIO.
Sounds good to me, huh?
Yeah,
I think it's great that she's coming in front of the council. I think it'd be a great education and really
Right.
understand more.
Figure out how to do
It's
it.
great.
Okay.
right.
a
I
great-
also
great
think
plan.
that we need to be a supporting partner,
Contributing partner.
Contributing partner.
Agreed.
I think the
I
more we
agree.
can do on the prevention side just makes a lot more sense than dealing with the end result. And that's
That's the goal.
Keeping our jail bill down.
on housing, and it's just on and on, right?
Yeah.
And that is the other component to this. It's not just mental health. I mean, as we know, a lot of these things have multifacets. You can be homeless, addicted to opioids, and have mental health issues, and a TBI. Well, all of those require different strategies to treat. We also work with Coffee Oasis, as everyone else does, but dealing with the adult homeless populations as well. So for our encampments, when officers go up in contact, they will bring Melissa with them to see if we can get people to services.
Great report.
Okay.
Sounds good to us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Affordable sales tax.
So this is on the agenda tonight. I just put it on in case you guys had any follow-up questions. I know you had one, Beck, on when we might be able to receive the revenue. So I talked about this with Paul.
Well, this is the affordable housing.
the affordable housing.
Housing.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
going to say, when is
Yeah.
sales tax affordable?
That's right.
It's only 1/10 of 1%.
It's not much. So the question you asked is when will we actually receive the money? So if we take action tonight, we could expect the city to actually receive the money by March of 2020.
Okay,
Oh,
There's a
that's quick.
30
Sooner than we
Yeah.
thought.
right.
Yeah, so there's a 30-day lag for DOR, and then it would go into effect, the tax would go into effect in January, and then those retailers would report to DOR in February. So by March, that money would be coming back to
So
us.
I thought the sales tax was already being collected, just reallocating.
Correct,
Yes.
and that's why it's a much faster turnaround.
Because you just said that retailers would be notified.
Well, no, retailers would report to the state of their sales and providing the sales tax revenue.
But they do that
Are
now.
they doing that now?
They do
What
that
they
now.
do, but what he's saying is they report in January, and then Commerce or whoever it is
Right.
breaks out
They
that.
pay the sales tax
And
in
then it
January,
takes them a
essentially.
month to, yeah.
Yeah.
I got it.
Are the rest of our sales tax is a 2-month delay? When we look at this,
Right.
and so that'll be a 3-month delay because there's an extra step.
Yeah. So when we worked with the KISAP Human Resource, no, KCR,
Community resources.
KISAP Human Resources, we're drafting the contract now. I have Sharon drafting the contract. We'll work with them to get that language, to get the program right. Again, but we're going to have to write this carefully, that we're not going to release any money until we actually have collected it first.
Right.
So the time's going to be important. So we may not start releasing any money maybe till June or something staggered. To make sure we actually have the money and restrict it in our accounts to actually then be able to assign out.
So it's not on the agenda. You didn't ask if we wanted to add something to the agenda.
No, I'm not allowing it. We're running out of time. What, do you have something?
Well, no, I just, help me remember, in our budget, we took out the $200,000
For TBD,
for TBD.
we did not.
We did not.
No, what we
So
said
have
we
you
would-
done magic yet?
No, I have not done the magic yet. What I'm thinking, and I already shared with this, John, is we've been talking about this transportation committee.
Right.
And so in January, when the council does their retreat and assigns new committees, we will create the transportation committee. At that time, I think it makes sense that there's a couple good projects for that committee to start ticking off. and I've talked about this with Nick and Mark as well, that I envision this committee to be a three-pronged approach with planning, public works, and finance.
Right.
The initial stages of this committee is going to be a lot of education on what is our 6-year transportation plan, what are our revenues and resources, what do we kind of have planned over the next year or so, how do we want to strategize, how do we want to prioritize, especially now with the potential loss of that $200,000. We really should take a pause, in my mind, on how we're budgeted our transportation projects or even this current biennium, and really think about how do we want to prioritize our dollars. Now, we did backfill $270,000 in this budget amendment, but it was supposed to be for paving for Sydney and
Lippert, I think.
Lippert. So we lost $200,000. We transferred $200,000 in. That's something I'd want to talk about. Say, well, operationally, we're kind of back to where we were. So all we kind of did is plug the hole at this point. So I don't know how much paving we will actually get now, unless you want to bring more money in to the fund. But that might be another opportunity for this committee to say, hey, why Lippert? Why Sydney? Why now? What things do we want to put in place? What kind of strategies do we want to put forward going
For
forward?
the TBD, I know that I believe you can take 0.2% sales tax to the voters to replace your $20 car tax. So I just multiplied, and I had to have done it wrong because it's not very much money.
Say, what is 2/10 for the city of Port Orchard?
See, I just took it on a monthly basis. I just took that and did 0.2%.
Well,
What
that's not-
percentage?
That's
we only
not
get-
correct.
Yeah.
No, this is our share.
Our share, right, but our share is what, like two,
It's like
it's like
2.5%,
2.5.
because the state takes 6.5%.
Right.
So divide that by,
10.
well, yeah, basically, divided by 10, and that's
50 grand a month.
Oh, so it's, okay, because I was taking 2/10
Tenths.
of this.
Yeah, no, you don't have
Every month.
2/10 of that.
That,
That's
this is
already-
ours, and our sales tax that we get is 2.5%.
So a 0.2 increase would be 10% of that number. 2.5. Right?
Okay, so 10% of that would be about
10%.
40, so that would be a lot of money.
Be more than the car tabs.
Yeah,
Exactly, and way more than 2/10 of that, because I was thinking that was not much money at all. That was a huge raising for us.
and what would it cost us to put that on the ballot?
Well, I think more importantly for this transportation committee is if we ask the voters for that, how are we going to spend it? What promises are we going to make to them, and how are we going to manage it? Because I sit on the project selection task force at PSRC's Transpo, and we were talking about the question came up about who had TBDs, and we got a list of who had, what communities had done the 0.2%, and which one did the car tabs and how much their car tabs were. I was surprised at the volume of, there many more communities did the 0.2% than did the car tabs, and those were not affected by I-976. Yeah.
I just looked up, interestingly enough, our county was actually way more in favor of 976 than the whole state. It only failed here 50.5% to 49.5%.
Yeah. 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 So anyway, that's something
But
that,
that's, what's interesting is people's position on car tabs versus sales tax, and it's completely different in a lot of cases. So I wouldn't necessarily take the results of the election and the initiative and say that's the indication of how they'll support
Well,
the
the sales tax too, where I think, philosophically speaking, you have so much more contributing to it, right? We're an area that we're a destination, you
Right.
get tourists coming in, so it spreads that burden not just on your local residents, but so many more people.
well,
So-
look at a number of car trips that go to Walmart or Fred Meyer, and how many of those are city residents compared to regional residents.
Absolutely.
And so you would be picking that up.
Absolutely.
There's
So I think-
pluses and minuses. The negative too is sales tax is really cyclical. I mean, as the economy goes, so does your revenue.
The other
Where
thing.
car tabs are relatively stable.
The other thing that, for the transportation committee, would be to think about, I don't think it's going to affect anyone shopping at Walmart or Fred Meyer or Lowe's, but I know that some of your car dealerships advertise that they have low sales tax. And so if our sales tax for our cars became greater than that at West Hills, that may be of influence. So I was wondering if we could somehow talk
But I think,
all of the
yeah,
jurisdictions.
it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, because I believe like if there's an additional tax for cars, I think the tax rate right now locally is 9.3% on a vehicle purchase.
Right,
It's
but
higher than your standard sales tax.
right, but 0.3 of that was I-976, which is coming off. So we would replace it, yeah,
I hear you're saying, though, just make sure there's a balance of.
right. Anyway, that's just something that I don't
I think your point is that if we could get everybody in the county to agree to do it at once, then we keep that playing field level versus
Correct.
one city having a higher tax and our car dealers being hurt.
Correct. But I think you also have to do a lot of, Nick and I have talked about this, wasn't it Tacoma that passed, you want to
When they
speak to
put
that?
together, they passed their first transportation levy in 40 years, like 2.5 years ago, and they hired a team to actually try to show what projects they're going to do where. They had an interactive map that showed projects in every part of the city. This is everything we're going to do with this money. And so they did that as a study in anticipation of the vote. And so the vote was on a levy to implement this project as opposed to just asking for money without having a detailed plan. And I know that once it's a ballot measure, you can't spend money to promote it, but I think to develop it, you can absolutely spend money to come up with that sort of plan.
And they did a levy, so that was on real estate, it wasn't on sales.
Correct,
tax.
that was a property tax levy.
See, to me, there's a marketing opportunity to our citizens to say, we're going to collect this tax and everybody shops in Port Orchard. It's not just going to be our citizens. And then I think
That's a good story, because our infrastructure is being dilapidated by
But-
many more users than just the residents of Port Orchard.
right, and I think with that, you could also, as Nick said, you say what projects you're going to do, but that might be a good source, for Bethel, because that's where a lot of that traffic is, and, yeah. So anyway, that was just,
Yeah, I think it's great, and I think these are the kind of things that we talk about the transportation committee really taking on. I think it's going to be a bigger thing in the city than we have in the past. We'll be
At
more
the very
organized.
least, it sounds like we've kind of plugged the gap. We're not going to gain any ground, but we've got time to figure out how best to move forward.
So our last $20 car tab will originate from December.
That's what I'm told. Yeah.
Well, this initiative, if approved, will go into effect on the 5th of December. So theoretically, all collection will stop on the 5th of December. So
Just do that.
car tabs of January will
Is there any
get the
chance of a
benefit.
stay from a court?
Yes, and the city of Seattle, King County, Washington State Transit Association, and I understand that WISTA, State Transit Association, we voted to challenge it, and the Association of Washington Cities is helping, they're joining the pack to help fund it, so. And that's the first thing that they're going to ask for is a stay, because this is, we anticipate this going all the way through the Supreme Court.
Interesting to watch.
Well, and anything else for the good of the order?
I have nothing else on my agenda.
That will adjourn the committee. Turn that off.